We already know the Volkswagen Polo is a very good little car. I mean, it must be. They've sold more than 14 million of the things since the Mark I was released back in 1975. But that was a long time ago, so 45 years and 6 generations later, is the Polo still what it was?
This is the latest 6th generation Polo. It's also the Beats edition, which means it's got a couple of extra badges, a fairly ballsy interior colour scheme, but most importantly, a banging stereo. Which goes hand in hand with the equally juvenile Go Faster stripe over its snout and roof. But the 300-watt stereo and decals aside, what's the Polo all about? Well, this one I'm in is the 1-litre turbocharged version, producing just less than 100 horsepower. There is an even less powerful version, which I wouldn't touch with a barge pole, but also a 200 horsepower GTI model, which I would. 0-60 may take 10 seconds, but actually, in a car like this, far more importantly, the gearbox just clicks into gear like lubricated Lego. And when you team that up with all this visibility, the light steering, you realise the Polo is as easy to drive as consuming Pringles. I had a 4th gen Polo as my first car and it was fantastic. Easy to use, fun, spacious, and did not once have me stood at the side of the road wondering why the bonnet was up. And there's more good news. The steering is light and nimble with less inherent understeer than you might expect. There's comfortably enough room in the back for 3 adults along with the entirety of their legs. And the 351 litres of boot space vastly outdoes all of its key rivals. But let's not get carried away, because there are a couple of drawbacks. Firstly, there's the interior. Now, unlike the main dashboard, the doors are made with this horrible, cheap-feeling plastic, which feels like it's fallen out the back of B&M. Then there's the auto brightness screens in front of me, which are too dim in the day and too bright at night. Then there's the styling, which is by no means bad. It's just there's nothing great about it either. And then we come to Volkswagen's apparent inability to make a quiet windscreen wiper. With VWs of yesteryear, it was the rear wiper that made a noise, and you could sort of live with that. But with the Polo, it's the front ones. And that's just annoying. So, the Polo isn't perfect, and we're yet to mention the electric-powered elephant in the room. You see, Volkswagen decided to drop the option of a 3-door Polo, meaning now it is only available as a 5-door, as I have here. And that's not the end of the world, but it is, sadly, the end of the Golf. VW's fully electric, carbon-neutral ID3, which is already on sale, will replace the Golf from 2021, in line with the ban of new petrol and diesel cars after 2030. That means the current Mark 8 Golf is the last one ever. And that makes me a bit sad.
But before we get all misty-eyed at the prospect of losing an icon in the Golf, it is worth bearing in mind the Polo is expected to continue in order to offer a petrol alternative amid the rise of the fully electric ID range. So the question remains, for the next few years at least, is the Polo a good enough Golf replacement?
Prices start at around £14,000, which isn't particularly cheap, but is, let's not forget, almost 10 grand less than the cheapest Golf. And yet the Polo shares the same nicely built, well thought out steering wheel as the Golf. The ride in here is a great balance of comfort and agility. There's a great bundle of bits included as standard. And And we haven't even got to the dual carriageway yet.
Because once you do, the Polo's longer and wider build comes into its own.
Now you must remember this one I'm in has less than 100 horsepower and just 5 gears, and yet I'm sat here at 80 very happily. There's little wind noise, the engine isn't revving its nuts off, it's just easy.
And that's what the Polo is all about. It's easy, it's no drama, both trendy and utilitarian. The very things that made its bigger sibling, the Golf, the icon it is.
And so when next year we lose the Volkswagen Golf, I think we can rest assured that the Polo, and particularly the Polo GTI, will be a decent petroleum-powered alternative.